Hello, Wonderhussy here, up in the eastern Sierra Nevada mountains at gorgeous Lundy Lake. Now, you might remember that I actually came here to Lundy Lake last summer because I hiked up to this super duper remote old, I think it was a gold mine, way up the canyon there. And when I was standing up on that ridge, I looked down here where I am now, and I think I talked about how there's this old abandoned resort. Well, come to find out, it's not actually abandoned. It's a historic resort dating from like the 1930s, I think, that I guess was sort of falling into disrepair. The previous owners didn't really do maintenance on it, and so all the old buildings started falling apart. And fortunately, I guess the place is under new ownership, and these folks are working at restoring these old historic cabins, some of which date from the 1800s. That's right, this wasn't a resort until I think the 1930s, but prior to that, Lundy Canyon was the site of a mining and lumber milling town. Because obviously, yeah, there was the gold mines up in the mountains there, but there's also a lot of pine trees up here. And since we are in the eastern Sierra, once the mountains sort of peter out, it turns into desert, and so there aren't any trees over that way. And so a lot of these mining towns over yonder to the east, including Bodie. If you've ever been to Bodie Ghost Town, it's one of the best known ghost towns in America, and it's just right over there. Well, they needed lumber to build those towns. There weren't any trees over there. And so all the lumber that was used to build Bodie Ghost Town was actually milled right up here in Lundy Canyon. So yeah, this was an old milling and mining town called Lundy. But when a dam was built on Lundy Creek, the newly created Lundy Lake ended up flooding most of the ruins, and a lot of the old foundations are underwater now. But lucky for us, there's plenty of cool stuff that did survive, in part thanks to a very interesting woman that I had never even heard of until I started researching this video. It's a woman named Nellie Bly Baker, and she was an actress, a Hollywood actress, way back in the day, the days of silent movies, okay? I guess she started out working for Charlie Chaplin as a projectionist, I think. She was the first female projectionist. Remember, back in the day, you actually had to have skill to load the reels onto the movie projectors and show the movies. Well, Nellie Bly Baker was the first female projectionist, worked for Charlie Chaplin. I guess he saw something special in her, and so he put her in one of his movies as an actress. And from there, well, she transitioned into being a silent film actress, and she was in a whole bunch of movies. Never really a starring role. She always played kind of supporting roles. She played a lot of maids, according to what I read online. Anyway, she worked as a Hollywood actress for over a decade, until one day in the 1930s, I guess they came up here scouting locations for some movie she was going to be in. She fell in love with the landscape and decided to leave her husband and Hollywood behind and move up here. And who could blame her? Now, when she got here, there wasn't really anything up here other than an old, busted, abandoned ghost town. Not all that different from the way it looks today. But apparently Nellie Bly Baker was a total badass because she got up here, looked around, poked through the random odds and ends that were left behind from the old mine camp, and built her own cabin from scratch by herself and lived in it for 2 winters by herself up here in the mountains, and the snow piles up real high out here. This woman came out here back in the 1930s and did all that. I think it's absolutely amazing. I can't believe I had never heard of Nellie Bly Baker before, but I'm glad I did, thanks to this awesome viewer of my channel who invited me up here and told me about it. Hey, Cindy. Cindy, you're awesome. Thank you for inviting me up here.
Thank you for being here.
And what's your name again, ma'am?
I'm Haley.
Haley. Haley has been up here busting her hump
Well, there's been a lot of us. There's a lot of friends and family that are helping to restore the place and bring it to life.
And so you're the new owner of the resort?
Yeah, my family and I together. Yeah.
And you're going to bring this place back to life?
That's the goal. I'm 4th generation, and my goal is to get it to a place that we can have another 4 generations.
4th generation coming up here to Lundy Lake.
Yeah, my great granddaddy worked for the equivalent of like AT&T.
Oh, wow.
And would travel up and down the 395, and like so many others just said, oh, what's that sign that says Lundy Lake? And drove up the road. And then he took my grandpa took my dad, and then my dad took me, and then all my extended family comes up here, so we drink the Lundy Kool-Aid.
So I was just talking in my intro about Nellie Bly Baker. I had never heard of her before, but she built a cabin here out of old odds and ends that she scavenged from the old mine camp.
That's right.
And you've been restoring Nellie's cabin?
Yeah.
Okay, the cabin that Nellie Bly Baker built out of random mine camp leftovers became affectionately known as the Tilton Hilton because it had fallen into disrepair over the years and was, shall we say, tilting a little bit. But considering it was built by a Hollywood actress with zero construction experience using salvaged materials from an abandoned ghost town about 100 years ago, I think it's pretty impressive there's anything left standing at all. According to Haley, Nellie basically took a few of the abandoned shacks from Lundy Ghost Town and sort of cobbled them together to create this pretty impressive 2-story cabin.
And it needed to be 2 stories so that in the winter time she had an entrance and exit because so much snow comes here. During peak winter with snowfall, this is completely covered.
Really? So you wouldn't be able to get out the first floor door?
No, or you'd have to dig a lot. And so you have to have a second story in order to enter.
Oh, so this is kind of like a little covered porch on the second story?
Imagine you are in the snow at Lundy in the winter time or early spring. And the snow is going all the way up to here.
Yeah, so just for reference, like snow will pile up that high to the second floor.
Yeah, this is her patio.
Okay, so this was her front door when the snow was piled up.
Correct. I like to call it the door to nowhere.
Door to nowhere, yeah. So I don't know if you can see, the sun's kind of glaring on it, but there's a little door coming out of the second story onto this little patio. And so when the snow was piled high, all she had to do was walk out here right onto the snow without having to dig a tunnel and go out the first floor. But when there's no snow,
It's a door
to nowhere. If you walk out there now, you're going to fall, like 10 feet? Yikes.
Yeah.
That's the resourcefulness of mountain folk, I guess. Instead of shoveling all that snow every winter to tunnel out of your house, just build yourself a 2nd-story door to nowhere. And when it comes to staying warm in the wintertime, well, then you just build yourself a big old fireplace using whatever random materials you have at hand.
So these are all like local rocks, and then you see all of this random metal that's in
so
here.
this is like she didn't have rebar.
No rebar.
She needed to reinforce the chimney, but she didn't. It's not like there's a Home Depot right down the road.
There's like literally like a bolt right here.
So these are just like bits and bobs of stuff she found.
Yep.
Laying around. How did she figure out how to make a fireplace? There's an interesting story with that, isn't there?
Well, the story goes that, I don't know if it was the Capitol or the White House. I forget. I would have to look it up. But she, let's pretend it's the White House. I think it was the White House. Dear White House, I live in the mountains and I'm looking to build a fireplace and a chimney. How do I do that? And she mailed the letter, and then they mailed her a letter back with directions on how to build a fireplace. And boy, have things changed.
Boy, yeah, how things have changed. Imagine writing to the White House how to build a chimney and getting any answer at all. That's incredible. Let alone an answer that actually worked, right?
I know. Well, I think she probably had to make some adjustments after getting the feedback of how to.
Because she had already started by the time
I think she had started. Yeah, because she had to have
a
fireplace for the winter.
You'll die. And she stayed 2 winters by herself, right? All alone?
I don't know how many, but definitely she had winters
by herself. She
had like a pet skunk and a pet.
Okay, well, she wasn't by herself. She was like Snow White. Oh my God, with her pet skunk.
I know she's really just an incredible lady.
Oh, because she was also the first licensed female mountain guide in California?
wilderness guide.
Wilderness
guide. Female wilderness guide is at Lundy, and now we have a bunch of we're carrying on that legacy.
Sure, there's plenty of female wilderness guides now, but back in the day, that was a big deal. And so she took guys on expeditions.
I know, right?
That's amazing. In addition to building her own house and, taking care of her pet skunk and all the other things she did. It's amazing that a Hollywood actress would come way up here in the mountains, find an old mining town, figure out a way to put everything together. I mean, my sister and I have a hard enough time just trying to do minor home improvement projects. I don't know how this woman did this. And then the fact that it's still standing today, almost 100 years later.
Yeah.
I'd like to see any of today's Hollywood actresses do something like that. Anyway, I could tell Haley was really passionate about keeping Nellie's story alive. And in fact, her goal is to eventually restore the Tilton Hilton to the point where the ground floor can be used as the camp store for the Lundy Lake Resort. And upstairs, she plans to create a little museum to honor the life and legacy of this fascinating woman. Wow, thank you so much for having me up here and sharing you have a lot of knowledge about this place, and I can see that you have a lot of passion.
I'm still learning, and it's everyone who comes up here teaches me something new, whether it be about fishing or wildlife or the history of the place. But Lundy is well and alive.
Yeah, exactly. So not an abandoned resort, thriving and in the process of becoming even better than it ever was.
Yeah.
To serve the next 4 generations.
That's the goal.
Of Lundy lovers.
Yeah.
Okay, Cindy, listen. I can't thank you enough for inviting me up here. I would never have known about any of this if it wasn't for you emailing me. So thank you, sis.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy to have you.
It was pointed out that we kind of look like twins because you're wearing the hat that, well, kind of like the hat I'm wearing. It's a good look. Okay, wow. What cool people. And what a beautiful canyon. I can totally see why they're so passionate about preserving the history and the old resort. Because, I mean, look at the surroundings. You know, they were saying families have been coming out here for generations. Well, you can understand why. Just looking at how absolutely beautiful this canyon is. Anyway, I drove way up the canyon because there's something up here that Nellie painted, and it's this giant, well, I guess they call it Indian rock because it's painted like a Native American. Okay, obviously the paint has been touched up over the last 100 years, but apparently Nellie Bly Baker, in addition to being craftsy enough to build an entire 2-story house out of old mining wreckage, was also artistic. And so apparently she painted 4 or 5, I think, big boulders like this scattered all around the canyon to look like, well, I guess the shapes that she saw in the rock. So, like with this one, she saw the shape of a Native American wearing a big feathered headdress, and, well, by golly, she painted the rock to look like her vision. Boy, you never saw Nellie Bly Baker just sitting around twiddling her thumbs. You know what I mean? Seems like she was always busy. If she wasn't building a 2-story cabin out of old mining wreckage or painting rocks, she's also responsible for having built one of the best known tourist attractions in this area, right down the hill in the little town of Lee Vining. And since I'm headed that way anyway, because I gotta get gas, well, we might as well head on down there and check it out. Okay, we're here in the unbelievably quaint and picturesque town of Lee Vining, just down the street from the Monocone, which is an awesome little fast food stand. And if you've ever been to the Monocone, well, maybe you've taken the time to walk down the street and see this next place that we're about to check out. That's right, it's the world famous upside down house, which was built by Nellie Bly O'Brien. Okay, I know I've been calling her Nellie Bly Baker in this video, but I guess her married name was Nellie Bly O'Brien. There she is, her badass self. I guess that's in her days as the first female wilderness guide. But then down here, there she is from her days as a silent movie actress. This woman did it all, including building this, well, I don't know how else to describe it other than upside down house. Exactly as advertised. And I think the interior is just as upside down as the exterior. Unfortunately, you really can't see much through the windows, and the door is shut. Oh wait, look, we can peek in. Oh my gosh. Look at this. Okay, I know it's gonna be kind of dark, and it's probably completely discombobulating, but everything in this house is upside down. Even the pictures hanging on the wall, the lantern hanging on the wall. Let me see if I can zoom out. There's a bed on the ceiling. I think there's like an upside down flower pot in here somewhere. The whole dang thing is upside down. So what looks like the floor is actually the ceiling, and what looks like the ceiling is actually the floor. Too funny. Okay, I guess she was inspired by, well, the sign said there was a children's book, I guess at the time, called Upside Down Land, which came to her mind when she saw a tipped over miner's cabin. You know, we're out here, well, now we're right on the shores of Mono Lake, so there was all kinds of busted old mining wreckage, just like the stuff she used to build her Tilton Hilton up in Lundy Canyon. Well, she saw some old falling over miner's cabin, and it gave her the idea to build an upside down house as a sort of tourist attraction, I guess, for the children in this area. How about that? Wow, this upside down house is located in this little park that's full of crazy old mining equipment, including a giant old compressor truck. Reminds me of my friend Ross, the one-legged miner, who just went to great lengths to get a compressor of his very own up at his mine. Hi, Ross! Anyway, you can see that to this day, folks still come by to take pictures of Nellie Bly Baker, or Nellie Bly O'Brien's upside down house. And I just think that's really cool that her legacy lives on. And as a matter of fact, being here in Lee Vining and needing to get gas reminded me of another part of Nellie's legacy that I didn't even realize was a part of her legacy until now. That's right, the world famous Mobil gas station on Tioga Pass, just south of Lee Vining, has a very well-known restaurant inside. And you might be wondering, well, why is a gas station restaurant so well-known? Well, it has amazing high-end gourmet food, and the name of that restaurant is the Nellie Deli. Now, I've been here many times over the years, and in fact, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you might remember that I always used to wear a Mobil hat from here until they quit making them in the colors that I liked, and so I went and had my own made. But anyway, this is where I used to buy those hats, and I've eaten at the deli, and I never even stopped to wonder why it was called the Nellie Deli. And it only occurred to me while I was researching this video that it's named after Nellie Bly Baker. And since I'm here anyway, I might as well just go inside and check one more time. Oh my God, they do have it in the color I like. Man, I have been looking for this hat for years.
Look at all the fun other colors we have. Come get your own.
Oh, I don't want any other colors than this one. And you knew that, didn't you?
I knew that.
And how did you know?
You tagged us on Instagram.
So, what's your name, ma'am?
Denise.
Denise, you are in charge of making the hats here?
We make the hats.
And you saw me complaining, like, man, they don't have my color.
That's how you make your own. I was offended.
Okay, well, I'm gonna burn this hat and only wear this one
like
from
a
now on.
collector's.
Well, it's pretty funky by this point. So, is this actually named after Nellie Bly Baker?
Slightly, yes.
Slightly? What does that mean?
It's mostly named after the people flying down Tioga Pass, and we say, "Whoa, Nellie," because their brakes are on fire.
People coming down the pass too fast. Wah, wah. Okay, wow, how about that? And as if her making this hat for me wasn't nice enough, she just went ahead and gave it to me. So I guess even though it is something of a bummer that the deli isn't technically named after Nellie Bly Baker, everything worked out just fine anyway. And to thank these fine folks for their generosity, I'm gonna go ahead and fill up my tank here. Yikes.